What happens when a country stops spending, not with protests, but with silence? Empty Walmart parking lots stretching endlessly under grey skies, dimmed lights flickering through Target's glass doors, shuttered motels with no vacancy signs that haven't been turned on in months. Headlines flash across the screen, border towns lose millions and Canadian shoppers vanish. No protests, no slogans, just wallets staying home, and that silence has cost the US border economy billions. In 2025, a quiet movement across Canada is shaking the American retail economy to its core. While politicians debate trade wars, ordinary Canadians have already declared their own, without saying a word. It started with Trump's tariffs, another round of trade threats targeting Canadian goods, another round of economic punishment for America's northern neighbor. But this time, something was different. We're 40 million people, they're 300 million. Why are we always the target? This sentiment echoed across Tim Hortons counters and grocery store aisles from Vancouver to Halifax. Canadians weren't just frustrated, they were done. The shift began subtly. Shoppers started noticing Made in Canada labels they'd previously ignored. Social media wasn't flooded with hashtags or viral protests. Instead, something far more powerful was happening. Canadians were simply walking away. "We're not picking a fight," one Toronto shopper told a local reporter, "but we're being punished anyway, so why should we keep funding it?" No hashtags, no protests, just shopping carts left behind at the border. The transformation was stark and immediate. Satellite images of Buffalo's Walmart parking lots tell the story better than any economist could. In 2024, seas of cars with Ontario plates stretched across the asphalt every weekend. By early 2025, those same lots looked like abandoned airports. The numbers are staggering. More than 35,000 Ontario license plates vanished from US border retail locations in just 2 months. That's not just cars, that's $5 million in lost tax revenue in 8 weeks alone. The Peace Bridge and Rainbow Bridge, once choked with weekend shopping traffic, saw their crossings plummet by over 60,000 trips. Each crossing represented not just a car, but a family with spending power, a trunk full of American goods, a hotel room for the night. The ripple effects hit immediately. Motel occupancy near the border dropped 60%. Souvenir shops that had thrived on Canadian tourists started shedding staff. Gas stations that had built their weekend business model around Ontario plates watched their pumps sit idle. "It's like someone flipped a switch," said one Buffalo hotel manager. "One day they were here, the next day they weren't. No warning, no explanation, just gone." But why did Canadians stay home? The answer lies in a perfect storm of costs that turned bargain hunting into financial suicide. Let's break down what it actually costs a Canadian family to shop in the US. Now, first, there's fuel, easily $100 plus for a round trip to Buffalo or Detroit. Then there's the bridge toll, another $8 each way. The weak Canadian dollar means every American dollar costs $1.36 Canadian. But here's the killer, the new 25% surtax on US goods over the duty-free limit. That $40 cosmetic item, after taxes, duties, and exchange rates, it's now $64 Canadian, and that's before you factor in the time, the gas, the parking, the border wait times. What used to be savings is now a net loss. The math that once made cross-border shopping irresistible now makes it economically insane. Add to that the growing anxiety at customs, new border rules, stricter enforcement, and longer wait times have turned what was once a pleasant shopping trip into a stressful ordeal. The thrill of the bargain hunt has been replaced by the fear of being questioned, searched, or delayed. Canadian retailers didn't waste time mourning the loss of cross-border shopping. They saw opportunity. Walmart Canada launched aggressive everyday discount campaigns. Loblaws and Metro froze prices on hundreds of items. Canadian Tire brought back its famous money. These weren't just sales, they were strategic moves to capture spending that was no longer flowing south. The real winner was e-commerce. Amazon CA saw a surge in orders from border cities. Shoppers Drug Mart launched 2-hour prescription delivery. Canadian online retailers suddenly found themselves competing not with US stores, but with the inconvenience of crossing the border. Why go to Buffalo when the deals are in Barrie? Became the new consumer logic. Canadian retailers had finally found their competitive advantage, convenience, familiarity, and the Canadian dollar staying at home. The shift was so dramatic that some border city Canadians discovered local businesses they'd never noticed before. Strip malls that had seemed empty compared to American big box stores suddenly looked like viable alternatives. This wasn't just about economics, it was about emotion. The Angus Reid Institute captured the mood perfectly. 78% of Canadians now actively prefer domestic goods, and 59% explicitly support avoiding US products. Shopping had become a political act. Every purchase was a vote. Every dollar spent was a statement. The pride in Made in Canada labels that had been dormant for decades suddenly roared back to life. I used to feel embarrassed shopping at Canadian stores, admitted one former cross-border shopper. Now I feel embarrassed that I ever gave my money to companies that don't respect my country. This emotional shift turned economic retreat into patriotic duty. Social media filled not with protest hashtags, but with photos of Canadian-made products, local restaurant meals, and shopping bags from homegrown retailers. The psychological transformation was complete. American retail had gone from destination to enemy territory. The impact on American retail was swift and merciless. Walmart locations near the border started cutting hours. Target eliminated entire weekend shifts. Store managers who had built their success on Canadian customers suddenly found themselves explaining massive revenue drops to corporate headquarters. The fashion and luxury sector took a particularly hard hit. While Canadian retailers like Simons and Holt Renfrew saw record sales, American outlets like Saks and Nordstrom watched their cross-border traffic evaporate. The premium outlets that had been weekend destinations for Canadian families became ghost towns. Fast food chains weren't spared. McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's collectively lost $350 million in the first quarter alone from border locations. Meanwhile, Canadian chains like Mary Brown's Chicken and Tim Hortons saw their market share grow as Canadians chose domestic options. Technology retailers felt the pinch too. Best Buy locations near the border downsized their weekend staff. Apple Store visits from Canadian customers fell 25%. The Genius Bar appointments that had been dominated by Ontario residents suddenly had open slots. But perhaps the most telling indicator was membership cancellations. Costco and Sam's Club, which had built entire business models around Canadian bulk shoppers, saw membership renewals drop 11.8%. Corporate executives began questioning whether their border-focused strategies were sustainable. The human cost of this economic shift is measured in government budgets. Erie County, New York, faces a $22.7 million shortfall that could grow to $41 million. These aren't just numbers, they're snow removal budgets, library hours, hospital funding. Every Ontario license plate that disappeared from American parking lots represented dozens of dollars in lost tax revenue. Multiply that by thousands of cars and hundreds of thousands of shopping trips, and you get a fiscal crisis. Public services are already feeling the squeeze. Road maintenance budgets are being cut, library hours are being reduced. The tax revenue that once flowed naturally from Canadian cross-border shopping is simply gone, leaving local governments scrambling to fill the gaps. The multiplier effect is devastating. Each Canadian shopper supported not just the store they visited, but the gas station, the restaurant, the hotel, the parking lot. When they stopped coming, entire economic ecosystems collapsed. What makes this boycott so powerful is its silence. There are no headlines about protests, no rallies to cover, no spokespersons to interview, just steady, relentless decline. Placer, which tracks retail foot traffic, reports that visits to the top 100 border retail locations dropped 4.7% nationally, but in Canadian border towns, the drops are often 30%, 40%, even 50%. Gas stations that had relied on Canadian fill-ups watched their weekend revenue vanish. Motels that had been booked solid with shopping families now offer midweek rates on weekends. Even mailbox rental services that had helped Canadians avoid shipping costs are laying off staff. The border economy that had boomed for decades has turned into a ghost strip. The infrastructure is still there, the stores, the parking lots, the hotels, but the customers who made it all profitable have simply walked away. The retail boycott may be just the beginning. Early indicators suggest that medical tourism, traditionally a significant source of cross-border revenue, is also declining. Canadian patients who once traveled to US hospitals for procedures are increasingly choosing domestic options or going to Europe instead. University enrollment is another potential casualty. While it's too early for definitive data, college recruiters report decreased interest from Canadian students. The emotional distance that started with shopping may be extending to education. Even car sales are showing signs of strain. Canadian purchases of American vehicles have dropped significantly, with buyers increasingly choosing Japanese, Korean, or European alternatives. The question facing Washington is whether they're underestimating the power of emotional consumer backlash. Trade wars are usually fought with tariffs and regulations, but this war is being fought with wallets and choices, and the Canadians are winning. No slogans, no protests, just choices, and a border economy in crisis. The silent boycott has accomplished what years of diplomatic protests couldn't. It's forced Americans to notice Canadian economic power. Every empty parking lot, every closed store, every cancelled membership is a message louder than any politician's speech. A quiet boycott did what noise never could: cripple U.S. retail with silence. This is economic warfare conducted not with weapons or sanctions, but with the simple decision to shop at home, and as the numbers show, it's devastatingly effective. Next week, we'll examine how Canadian tourism is turning south, away from the US, and what that means for American resort towns and airlines. Like, share, and subscribe as we track the next wave of this invisible economic revolt, because when 40 million people decide to stay home, the whole world notices. Subscribe button, related videos, and a final shot of an empty American parking lot where Ontario plates once filled every space.